Hi everybody, my name is Anna Chapman and I'm Head of Service at London Stadium Learning. We're an educational provision in London Stadium. We're a legacy from the 2012 Games, very lucky to be there. We are running a project called Passing the Flame, and it's all about recognising, preserving the stories and the artefacts of those fantastic men and women who represented Great Britain in the Olympic Paralympic Games. We are looking at over 100 years worth of history, going way back to 1908, 1948 and 2012, and obviously all the games that GB athletes presented at in countries all over the world. So we're very, very lucky to be joined by John Harris today. He's a Paralympian from Wales, and he competed mainly in 5 different throwing events. And in 1984, he became the world record holder in discus, winning gold at the Summer Paralympics that was actually in Stoke Mandeville. He won a silver in discus and bronze in pentathlon in 1988. But since then, he's been a great fundraiser to raise awareness of disability sport. So we're very, very honoured to have you with us today, John. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Anna.
If you're ready for me to hand over to you, that would be fantastic. So we just want to know a little bit about who inspired you, what inspired you, maybe some of the barriers and challenges you faced and your greatest achievements. And I know it's a very fascinating story, so we're all very excited to hear. So I'm going to hand over to you now, John.
Hi everyone. Obviously, Anna just introduced me. I'm John Harris, Paralympic athlete. Back in 1964, I fell off a big wheel in Butlins, a Ferris wheel. I fell some 40 feet, landing on a brick wall, and I broke my back. And for me, it was an absolutely horrendous time. I was then flown by to Stoke Mandeville. I was flown by helicopter there, where I spent the next 6 months of my life. And to be honest with you, it was a pretty horrific time. And if someone had offered me a tablet, I think I probably would have taken it. The last thing I wanted was to be in a wheelchair. The last thing I wanted was to be disabled. But I was there for 5 or 6 months, and I can remember asking the doctor what the outcome of my accident would be. And he said, "How long have you been now, John?" And I said, "About 10, 12 weeks. He said, "What you have now is what you will have to live with for the rest of your life." Now, I was 19 years of age. That was the last thing I wanted to hear, because prior to that, I was all sport. My life was all sport. I was into boxing, gymnastics, rugby, football, you name it, I did it. I wasn't very good academically, I have to be honest, but sport was my absolute life. So you can imagine, when I left Stoke Mandeville, I felt there was nothing left for me at all. So for quite a few years, I spent my time down the local pub, just getting fatter and fatter and drunker. And I can remember my mother saying to me once, she said, "I need to speak to you." And this was a woman that sat at my bedside from 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night for almost 3 months at Stoke Mandeville. And she said, "I'm your mother. I love you, but I don't like you. You're not a very nice person any longer." Whoa, I was devastated. And I can remember, guys, crying myself to sleep that night. And I knew something had to change, but I didn't know what. So I was down at my local pub, and my mate said to me about joining a gym. And I didn't think I could do anything in a gym, being in a wheelchair. But I remember leaving the pub, crossing and going to the chip shop, and a car pulled up, and a stunning looking girl got out of this car, and she smiled at me. And I thought, my God, who's she smiling? I thought she was smiling at one of my friends. But no, it was me she was smiling at. She went into the fish shop and she started waving at me through the fish shop window. And all my mates were nudging me with elbows, you know. And when this girl came out of the fish shop, she walked straight towards me. And my heart was going 15 to the dozen, I have to be honest. And she came straight up to me and she gave me money to buy chips. And I was just absolutely devastated. I was gutted, you know. I wanted fish and chips. No, I was devastated because I thought, is this going to be the rest of my life? Am I just some sort of a charity case? And at the back of my mind, this was going on what my mate had said about joining the gym. Well, eventually I plucked up the courage and I went to my local gym with him and started training. And I was back where I wanted to be. I'd started, because I couldn't even look in the mirror and like myself, you know, but I was back doing the things I did prior to my accident. And after about 6 weeks, my mate stopped, but there was no way was I going to stop, you know. I needed to carry on. And in the corner of our gym was this group of like bodybuilders, weightlifters, powerlifters. No one could infiltrate this group of guys, like, you know. So I'm training them one day, and the fella that's heading up this group of bodybuilders and weightlifters and whatever came over to me and he said, "Don't think I'm trying to interfere, but you're doing that exercise wrong." So I said, "Oh, thank you very much." And the following, he showed me how to do the exercise. Following week, he's back again and saying the same thing. "Look, if you want me to go away, I will, but it's just that you're doing that exercise wrong." And I think, and the third week, he invited me into this group of bodybuilders and weightlifters. It was the most amazing feeling. These guys gave me my life back. Genuinely gave me my life back. I was totally transformed after that, and I concentrated and concentrated. And for me, I had a few heroes in the past, and I suppose one of my main heroes is a guy called Lynn Davis, and he was a Welshman, Olympic gold medalist in 1964 when I had my accident. And so he was, and I got to be good friends with him later on in life, and he was a massive inspiration to me, and a massive. But this, the biggest inspiration to me at that particular time was this fella called Brian Taylor. No one will probably ever have heard of it, but this man totally and utterly changed my life. He was a mentor, a confidant, everything that I needed at that particular time. And he was just an amazing, amazing guy. And this would have probably been very late 60s, maybe early 70s. And he was inspirational in getting me moving. And I joined then in Cwmbran a thing called, it was a fab club. And back in the day, not very politically correct now, but it was physically handicapped and able-bodied. That's what fab meant. Can you imagine that today? But anyway, it was like one disabled person, one able-bodied person. I joined this fab club. And to be honest, I became a little bit of a hero to some of the other disabled kids down there. I was much older, and I done quite a bit in sport, but then I was starting to move on a bit. And these kids were kind of looking up to me, and there was a competition down in South Wales, in Barry Island, of all places. And they asked me to enter this competition. So I did. I won everything I entered. I then joined a club in Cardiff, and it was just for people like myself, spinal cord injured. And within a year, I got selected to represent Wales at Stoke Mandeville for the national games. I went to this competition in Stoke Mandeville, and I found I was kind of okay at throwing discus by this time. And I was throwing around about 17 meters, which was good at that time, but not brilliant. So I went up to Stoke Mandeville and joined the discus competition. And there were a pile of guys there, about 25. And we all sat around all a little bit nervous. And I'd never competed like at this kind of level. And all of a sudden, one of them looked up and said, "Oh, that's it, we've had it. Here's Smokey coming." So I looked up to see this old fella, moustache, and looked about my age I am now, you know. And old fella, moustache, glasses, come wheeling across, and he was actually smoking a cigar. And no one, you did not smoke on competition. No one said anything to him at all. He was like, God, this fella, he must have been, you know. So he come wheeling over, and he sat there and he said, "All right, everyone." And people are looking at him, and they're kind of bowing, you know, more than anything. And someone just said, "How are you, Smokey? I wonder who'll have the silver medal today." And he stopped. He took the cigar and he put it in the spokes of his wheelchair, and he looked around at every single one of these blokes. He said, I don't know who's going to have the silver medal. One of you will, because I'm having the gold. And that was it. I looked at him and I thought, God, you big-headed. Who the hell do you think you are? Like, you know. So anyway, I'm fuming. I'm absolutely champion. So when it comes my turn to throw, I throw a PB. I throw 21 meters, and I am over the moon. And this Graham Smout, he threw 16 meters, 16 and a half meters. I found out that he'd been European champion, Commonwealth champion, British champion, represented Great Britain at a number of Paralympic games, and he was the main man. But he only threw 16 meters. And me, my first major competition, I'm beating him. So we come out in the afternoon for a final 3 throws, and I am buzzing. I'm pushing around like I'm God, you know. It was terrific. And anyway, I didn't throw any further than my 21 meters, and this Graham Smout came out, and he whacked this discus out at 26 and a half meters. And I was absolutely gutted. But he wheeled past me, and he took this cigar out of his spokes, and he puffed on it, blew the smoke in my face, and he just said, "Win some, lose some." And I wanted to shove the cigar up his nose, you know. But I wanted to be him, and I wanted to know what made him so special. Why was he so good? He certainly didn't look, you know, anything. He couldn't have been stronger. He couldn't have been fitter. I was certainly a lot younger than at that particular time. And yet he whacked this discus out. And what was it, you know? So for the next 4 or 5 days that we were up at the national games, I just sat with him. He taught me so much about, he couldn't coach me, but he taught me so much about the psychology of sport and what it takes to become a champion. And I'd really got the bug. This would have been probably about 73, 74. But it took me till 79 to compete in my first major competition. And it was a competition in Canada called a Super Challenge. And there were only 50 people throughout the world invited. And I was one of 3 that went from the UK. And this competition consisted of a number of different events and sports. And it was all based on world records, and it was all based on points. And so at the end of the week, when the points were totaled, I looked at the scoreboard and I was 49th out of 50. Nobody wanted to know me. I was nothing. I was nobody. The only one they wanted to know was the guy that won it. And I hated him with a passion. I wanted to be him. I wanted to be up there where everyone was all over him. Like, you know, all wanted to be around him, look at his medals and this, that, and the other. And in 1980, I got selected for my first Paralympic Games. I can't even begin to tell you what it felt like to put that Great Britain tracksuit on. I can't even begin to tell you. Do you know how many people actually get the opportunity to put on a Great Britain tracksuit? I wouldn't know myself, but out of 70 million people in the UK, I can guarantee you there's not that many. And I was one of those people. It was the Paralympic Games, and I kept looking at this badge. I was wearing a Great Britain tracksuit in the Paralympics. And it was in Arnhem. And I can remember our coach saying to me, "John, I'm picking you for this competition. I don't expect massive amounts from you. This is for experience. But 1984, I expect you to do something. I expect you to do something special. I expect you to medal. But just enjoy this as best you can." And a great, great friend of mine, Steve Gregg, no longer with us, sadly passed away last year, Steve. But I followed, and he won a silver medal in shot put. I clapped as loud and as long as everyone there, like, you know. But I want him to come away with nothing, the same as me. I didn't win anything that year, and I beat Graham Smout's British record of 29 meters and 50 centimeters I threw. But Greggy won this silver medal, and I didn't even feel worthy of pushing by the side of him. I just pushed behind him. And every time he took the medal out, God, I wanted one so badly, I can't even begin to tell you, you know. And when I went home, I cut this piece of foil out and I stuck it on my bedroom wall. It was gold foil because you don't train to come second. If that's what you train for, that's what you'll get. Yeah, you know, Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're probably right. You know, so always trying to win. Pierre de Coubertin said, it's not the winning, it's taking part. Well, if you take part in a big way, that's a load of rubbish, okay? I wanted to win. I wanted more than anything to win. And for the next 4 years, all I did was train and train and train and compete. Wherever there was a competition, I went. I remember the tail end of 1983, we were told that the Paralympic Games had been cancelled in America through lack of funding. Can you imagine how I felt? Because I tell you something, guys, there isn't an able-bodied athlete alive that can feel any different to me. They can't want it any more than me. That's all I wanted, was to be a Paralympic athlete, and I wanted to be a medal winner more than anything else in the world. That's all I wanted. That's all I trained for. And so can you imagine how I was just totally and utterly devastated to think that I'd been training for these 3 years, day in, day out, week in, week out, year in. And I was told that they'd cancel the games. But anyway, they decided to put the games on at Stoke. And I decided I would retire. I wouldn't accept the fact that how can you cancel the Olympic Games, Paralympic Games? How can you cancel it? But anyway, I was sent a letter from Stoke Mandeville asking if I would like to take part in my second Paralympic Games, but I wouldn't sign it. And I can remember going into work the following day, I had the letter with me, and I showed the guys, the fellows I work with, you know. And they all said, look, you've got to go. It's your games. It's the Paralympic Games. I said, you don't understand how I feel. You can't even begin to understand how I feel. I'm devastated, you know, and so I'm going to retire. And there was a fella sat there, his name was Larry Thatcher, good rugby player, good coach. And Larry turned to me after everyone had gone. He said, you're not going to sign that paper, John? And I said, no, Larry, to hell with them. I'm retiring. He said, you've had a good life so far with your sport. And I said, yeah, it's been pretty good, Larry, pretty good. He said, so you're going to go out sulking, are you, like a little baby? And he was right. I wasn't prepared to fight for my sport and for what I believed in. And I signed the paper then in front of him, and I got selected then for my second Paralympic Games at Stoke Mandeville. And I'm so glad that I did it, because they asked me to read the athlete's oath, which is a phenomenal honor to be able to read the athlete's oath. And I read this in front of thousands, and I always remember, I knew the oath off by heart, but I had it on a piece of paper on my lap. And I can remember having to wheel up to this podium to read the oath. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't need this bit of paper anymore. I know it off by heart. And then I'm thinking, but what if I forget? And I'm thinking, well, you shouldn't forget. But I'm thinking, yeah, but what if you do? And all of a sudden, I started doubting myself and doubting my ability to remember a few words on a bit of paper. And I thought, well, if I'm going to start doubting myself now, what am I going to be like when I start to compete? So my stomach was starting to go. I picked the paper and I threw it away. And luckily, the oath went word perfect. And I wheeled down off the podium, and I was introduced to Prince Charles. And he said to me, how did you have your accident? So I said, well, I fell off a big wheel in Buckinghamshire. And he said, oh, that was nasty. So I said, not really. I said, because I had 9 points for degree of difficulty in my dive and 8 for style. And he turned to this guy by the side of me and said, that's a typical Welsh sense of humour. It was, but I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. It was just the fact that I was so chuffed that everything went well and I was okay. But the following day was the discus competition. And I told all the coaches prior to go into Stoke Mandeville that I would only compete in one event, and that was discus. And that particular time you had to compete in multiple of events to get selected for Great Britain. But I said, I'm only going to train and compete in the one. I said, if you want me to throw shot put, I will, but I'm not training for it. And I'll throw javelin, but I'm not training for it. And they said, go ahead, John, we'll pick you just for discus. And so I was selected for discus. So we came out in the morning, and bearing in mind, 4 years I've been training with this damn thing, this discus. Day in, day, week in, week out, rain, hail, sun, I threw this damn thing, you know. And I came out, and what happens is you get 3 throws, you're chained into the center, into the circle, you get 3 throws, the best 8 go through for a final 3 throws in the afternoon. And my first 3 throws were just absolute rubbish. I was that nervous, it was absolute rubbish. But I managed to scrape into the top 8. So we came out in the afternoon, and I was 6th, lying in 6th position. And there were 5 people in the competition I'd never beaten before, but somewhere in this little Welsh chest, I knew I was in with a shout. I just felt I wasn't. I was letting myself down and my family. And my next 2 throws were rubbish again. And I sat there, and around about this time, I was probably the most selfish person I ever knew. Everything was about me, and a bit more me. And I used to have one guy who used to phone him in the morning, Roy, I need you to come and help me throw some discus. And then I'd phone him in the afternoon, Roy, I need to go down the stadium. I need to be doing a bit of sprint work to get a bit of exercise. And in the evening, I'd phone him again and I'd give him 10 cigarettes. That's all. But I expected him to do it. I expected his support. I expected my family to support me, friends to support me. So I'm sat there. I got 3 minutes to throw this discus. And it's there in my hand. And all of a sudden, I stopped thinking about me. And it became all about Roy, all about my mother, my coaches, my friends. They believed in me and I was letting them down. And I thought, I looked at this discus and I thought, if I never, ever throw another discus, this last discus is for all those people that believed in me. And I started warming up and I got goosebumps all up and down my arms, all over my body, my head, cheeks, everything. I started warming up and all of a sudden, my arm was like a pendulum and it just seemed to get longer and longer. I just took this breath and bang, and I let the discus go. Never felt a thing. Don't know what the hell happened. And all my mates always said, whoa, that's brilliant. And they used to call me handsome. Well, even blatantly, obviously obvious way. But I let it out. It was fair throw. And when the officials went out to measure it, they were there and they were measuring and they were all of a sudden they were chatting amongst themselves. And then one of the officials looked up and he called for a metal tape. And my stomach just went, because then, as soon as they called for metal tape, back then it meant they were checking for a world record. They couldn't do it with a paper tape, or the plastic tape. It had to be measured with a metal tape. And I'd thrown 31 meters and 88 centimeters, and it was a world record. But I had to wait for 5 other people to throw. Can you imagine that weight? It was, I just wanted to be home. I wanted to be sick. I wanted to be anywhere bar there. And all this is going through my mind. And before I know it, I look up and I'm in bronze medal position. No one can take it from me. It's mine. And all I could think of is, I can phone my mother and tell her I've won a bronze medal. And then before I know it, I'm in silver medal position. And then the final athlete is a guy called Kowalik. Oh, he's a big fella. He's a big lumper. His shoulders a yard wide. And I'd never ever beaten him. I always held him in really high esteem. And his first 2 throws, I couldn't watch it. And my mates were saying, you haven't reached your distance, John. You haven't reached it. He hasn't done it. And I'm sat there in his final throw. And you can imagine, I just want to be sick. And I can smell him. I can taste him. And all of a sudden, I can hear him warming up. And all of a sudden, he just gives this God almighty scream. Sounds exactly the same in Polish as it does in English. I could tell you that as well. He let this discus go, and all I can remember was hearing it hit the discus cage. And I am now world record holder and Olympic gold medalist. I'm the best in the world. I'm the best in the whole world. I wasn't the best in Pontypool. I wasn't the best in my county of Torfaen or Wales or Britain, but John Harris was the best in the world. The greatest feeling ever. This was 11 years coming to me. It took me 11 years to get to there. But every single second was worth our wait, because when I picked up that gold medal, to see that, put it around my neck, it was the most unbelievable feeling ever. Everything I'd probably ever done since has kind of revolved around that moment when I stopped thinking about me and I started thinking about other people. And it's quite a nice feeling. And I've been fortunate. I've done quite a few charity events, and it's all stemmed from those moments, that 1984 when I won that gold medal. And a great friend of mine, Chris Allen, sadly again no longer with us. He won London Marathon that year, And in 1985, I was thinking I'd probably retire. I probably wouldn't be doing much more, you know. But in 1985, I did a wheelchair marathon. And I went in to see Chris Allen afterwards. He was in hospital at a particular time. I went to see him in hospital. My fingers were ripped to shreds. And I said to him, you know, that we both had a great life in sport, and it was time we did something to help out, like, you know. So we both decided that we would try to push around Wales and build a sports centre for disabled people. The original plan was to push from John O'Groats to Land's End, but Chris said, who's going to give us money in Scotland? Who will give us money down in Cornwall? So we decided to push around Wales. And Chris decided that we would push 400 miles in 11 days. 400 miles in 11 days. That's 15 marathons in 11 days. And we set off up in Wrexham. I always remember newspapers, television, they were all there. And one of the local newspapers came to interview us, and she said to Chris, she said, Chris, what do you do? So he said, well, I'm a wheelchair athlete. He said, I'm winner of the London Marathon. He said, I'm a swimmer, 50 meters world breaststroke champion. I'm Olympic gold medalist. And she said to me, and you, John? I said, well, I'm Olympic gold medalist and I'm the world discus champion. So the following day, day after, whatever, in the newspaper was Chris Hallam, winner of the London Marathon, 50 meters world breaststroke champion, Olympic gold medalist, is undertaking a 400-mile push around Wales with his friend and compatriot, John Harris, who's a world disco champion. So Chris Hallam pushed and I danced. But it was phenomenal. And we raised £25,000 in that 11 days. And that's back in 1987, which was a long, you know, a lot of money back in that day. And before you know it, 1988 is around. And I've been selected for my third Paralympic Games in Seoul in Korea. And this was the first games that I'd been to, or the modern games I'd been to, that was held in the same venue as the Olympic Games. So the Paralympics and the Olympics are held in the same venue, you know. And for me to be able to push down that track where Carl Lewis and people like that ran, you know, and to be in that stadium and compete at the highest level, you know. And I broke the world record in the pentathlon as well, there in discus throwing, 35 meters, 76 centimeters, and smashing a great friend of mine called Rudy Van Dabley in the pentathlon. And we had some up and downers, some real ding-dongs, but I managed to win a silver medal in discus and a bronze medal in pentathlon. So I have the complete set of Paralympic medals, which for me is all I ever wanted. Is some people have won a lot more than me, but I've still got that Olympic medal, you know. I still have that Olympic medal. I remember again, I got married then in 1989, and I have 2 children from that marriage, and they were my absolute life. I loved the pair of them to bits. And in 1992, I fly back out to Barcelona, which was probably one of the greatest games ever. I didn't win a medal. To be honest, I was probably going past my sell-by date. But I went, and I'm glad I went, because I still broke a couple of British records, as a matter of fact. But that games was for me, my life is all about my sport. But there are other things I have done. In 1986, I was a subject of a program called This Is Your Life. So if you wanted to Google the Big Red Book, all of you could Google it and search my name, John Harris, and you will see me in this Big Red Book. And only 1,000 people have ever been on this program, and I was one of them in 1986, which was phenomenal, you know. But going back to 1988, which was pretty blooming awesome, you know. And coming back from there again, as I'm thinking it's time for me to retire, but there's more stuff going on. In 1994, I was team manager for the disabled in the Commonwealth Games representing Wales. And I took a couple of the guys out and I was team manager. And just prior to 1996, you know, the games out in Atlanta, my wife and myself, we split up. and I was pretty gutted because with the children as well. I was pretty gutted, but it was just one of those things that happened, like, you know. And I tried to get back together, but it didn't happen. So Chris and myself in 1997 decided we would do another push around Wales, and we were going to push 600 miles in 37 days, 18 miles every day for 37 days. But at this time, Chris was pretty rough. His kidneys had started packing in. And he said to me, you're going to have to push every bit of it. I'll do as much as I can, but you're going to have to push every bit of this. So I decided there and then that I wouldn't become ill and nothing would happen to me. And luckily, because the onus, everything was on me, I had to do it. And so I did. And there were times when Chris was so ill, he was passing blood. And he was one of my greatest heroes. I don't have many heroes, but Chris Allen was certainly one of them, you know. And I miss him desperately, even to this day. He's been no longer with us for the last 5-6 years, but was a great hero of mine. And you know, he was a good mentor as well, and helped me through my divorce and all that sort of thing. He was a great guy. So what you're getting today, guys, is warts and all, yeah, a bit of everything. The John Harris story, like, you know. And so that 97 push was phenomenal. But we wound up, I remember winding up in a small school up in the middle of Wales, and all the kids there had disabilities, learning disabilities or whatever. And I'm sat there and we're telling our story, and there's a little boy in the corner of this room. And if you don't remember anything I say, I want you to remember this because it defines who I actually am. And he was in the corner of this room and he was headbutting a wall. And every time I looked at him, he would look away. But eventually I caught his attention and he looked at me and I called him towards me. And because he thought I was some authoritarian figure, he came towards me and he stood in front of me, and all it was a bag of bones. So I looked at this little boy, and just being a dad, just being a human being, I just picked him up, and we call it cuts, you guys call it cuddle. Okay, I cuddled him to me on my lap, and he put his head on my shoulder, and he was shaking like a leaf, but he went to sleep. And after one of our organisers came out, said, come on, John, time to go put the boy down. We have to go meet the mayor. And I thought, to hell with the mayor. I'm not pushing around Wales for the mayor's sake. I'm pushing around Wales for people like this little boy, to help him build this sports centre, give all disabled kids an opportunity to compete and train. But anyway, after a while, I have to put this little boy down because we do finally have to go. And he went back to his corner. One of the teachers came over to me and she said, John, we've never seen that before. He doesn't respond or identify with anyone. All he's known all his life was abuse. But for a moment, he was with someone he knew wasn't going to hurt him. Okay? I wouldn't know him, obviously, if he stood there, but all those moments when times I feel like giving up, all I have to do is remember that little boy and think how lucky I am, and think how unlucky he was. But for a moment, maybe he thought the whole world wasn't going to be against him. And just for that moment, he thought, well, oh, okay, someone's okay with me. And that makes me feel pretty good about myself. Kind of, you know, I can like me for that. So that was pretty important to me, that one. And like, I retired after that, basically, and I did my 5 Paralympic Games. And in 2012, I actually carried the Olympic torch. So that was pretty amazing for me. And in 2013, I was enrolled in the Welsh Sports Hall of Fame. And again, you know, that's a great honor because some of the greatest ever Welsh sportsmen have gone into the Hall of Fame, and some even better ones haven't. Some phenomenal Welsh athletes haven't got anywhere near being in the Hall of Fame, but I'm in there, and it was fantastic for me. And I think some of the things I've done and being able to be involved in has helped that. And one of the things I was involved in 2013 as well was I was involved in a project called Dreams and Wishes, where some of the children were pretty ill. And so I went to Kilimanjaro, and I was able to get to Gilman's Point, 5,681 meters, and I think it's the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. And I was, at that particular time, I was 68 years of age, and I was the oldest wheelchair user ever to get to Gilman's Point. And it was pretty impressive. And I was again, I was like I say, I was pretty lucky in doing what I did. But sport, life, disability, it's never been something that's overly bothered me, my disability, other than in the early years. And someone once said to me, if I could turn the clock back, no, I've got a great life. I've got a fantastic life. I've got 2 absolutely brilliant children. I got wonderful family, great friends. That's kind of my story. And I've done, I do quite a few talks, and I've been lucky. Some of the jobs I've had, I worked for a company where I was able to travel to Australia, America, and I've been pretty lucky. But that, guys, is my story. I hope you enjoyed it.
Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. What a story. So inspirational, amazing. We've got a few questions, if that's all right.
Certainly.
We're going to fire at you. So Jaden wants to know, and I think this was when you were talking about your mental attitude, and I think, probably when you won your world record for the discus, he wanted to know what was more important that you felt. Was it the mental preparation or the physical preparation?
You have to have that balance of both. You have to be super fit, and you have to have that belief in yourself that you can take that fitness on to the next level, which is winning a competition. And you have to be totally 100% focused, and that's the maximum you can give. And that's on both the mental attitude and the physical attitude. You have to have both.
And Tasleen would like to know if there would be any other sports that you would like to train in. I mean, it sounds like you're good at every sport, John.
Let me tell you something now. I had a go at downhill tobogganing.
Wow.
Right, and it was up in Glenshee, up in Scotland. So if you think I was good at everything, let me tell you something now. No, I wasn't. I had to go downhill tobogganing. Well. The run, it was on a ski run. It was 600 meters. I think I spent 500 of them on my face going down this ski run. I was absolutely petrified, going down this run. And I've been scared so many times. And it's unbelievable. So don't think I'm just this superhero that can do anything at all. I've had to go at scuba diving. I dived in the south of France. I went down 110 feet and dived off an old American landing craft. Again, I was scared. I was dead scared, And someone once said, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the will to go on despite it. So always remember that, yeah? Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the will to go on despite it. And I was scared, but I still did it anyway, and I'm glad I did it. And both of them, I was pretty rubbish. And I went to the Peak District, the Lake District, and I had to go at canoeing. Now, my friend, I used to beat him at everything, and yet in a canoe, he was phenomenal, and I was blooming useless in this damn canoe. But my mate, he just took to it like a, pardon the pun, ducked the water. But so, yeah, I wasn't brilliant at everything. But I just seem to enjoy most sports. This is my Olympic gold medal. Do I need to be closer? Yeah.
That's fantastic. What's the other side got?
Yeah,
wow.
That was the one at Stoke Mandeville.
Brilliant. Yeah. Fantastic.
So I'll put that there a second, and now I'm going to show you. I'll show you my Olympic. I don't know which one this one is, but we'll have a look now. This is my Olympic silver medal.
Wow. Fantastic.
And this was Korea, and I'll show, if you see the bears, yeah, it was
the
year of the bear, and on the back then is the stadium we competed in.
Beautiful.
But on the medal as well, on the top, it's in Braille, so that the visually impaired for visually impaired people.
Wow.
And then this is my Olympic bronze medal now. That's bound to be that one. That's the only one I got left there now. Let me take it out of the, well, I'll leave it in the box so you can see the box as well. This was my
Beautiful.
Olympic bronze medal. Whoop, falling out. So I should have taken it
It's
out
a
the
good
box.
thing they can't break.
Oh, no, you're all right there. This is my Olympic bronze medal.
Wow, look at that.
So, yeah.
Fantastic.
That's
Brilliant.
the Olympic bronze. Same
Wow.
year of the bear. But I'll show you this because back in the day, they used to call myself Kevin Baker, Les Jones, and another friend of mine, Ernie Guild. They used to call us the Fab Four. And have a look at this one. I was nominated for Disabled Sports Personality of the Year in 1984. That's solid silver.
That's beautiful.
Solid, and that was World of Sport with Dickie Davis in up in the Savoy Hotel up in London, which was fantastic. It was amazing. Amazing it was, you know. So
fantastic.
Yeah, I've been. The Olympic torch. I haven't shown you the Olympic torch. Well, like I don't know, 60, 70 million people in the UK. There were 8,000 people that got to carry the Olympic torch.
Wow.
And I was one of them. Only 8,000 people were selected, and I was one of them. And I still wonder why they picked me. But I certainly won't. I was certainly so over the moon with the fact that I carried it. And this is my Olympic torch with the 2012. Now there are 8,000 holes representing the 8,000 torch bearers. And it's 800 grams and 800 millimeters long.
Wow.
And on the top says that it stands for the 3 Olympic ideals, which for me are win, win, and win. Yeah. But on the very bottom of the Olympic torch, there's a tiny, tiny little nodule there.
A bit further over. Oh, wow.
There's a tiny little nodule that fitted on a bracket that was put on your wheelchair. So they knew that a wheelchair user would, at some stage, be carrying the Olympic torch. So prior to it, they'd already organized that, which I thought was phenomenal. You know, I thought that was great to be able to do that, like, you know.
Just very quickly, I'm interested in how things have changed, John. You know, you competed way back. You had your world record in 1984, and how things have changed. Yeah. And obviously politics, you know, the equality, the perceptions of Paralympians. Just a few sort of highlights, just to give young people the kind of context of, you know, what's been going on, really.
Yeah. When I first started competing, they thought wheelchair racers, they couldn't do any more than 1,500 meters, especially spinal cord, because they thought it would just kill them. I think it was only up to about 800 meters when I first started. But the Americans, the Canadians, some of the Europeans, they were innovative and they were phenomenal in as much that they would just go out on their own and do marathons and whatever, and prove to people that you could. You know, there was nothing wrong. If you were spinal cord, you could do it. But the politics and things back then, it was pretty horrendous, and it was all about charity back in the day. It was all about charity. Now today, you're funded by lottery monies. I'll tell you something now. I competed in 5 Paralympic Games. I competed over a period of like 25, 30 years. The most money I ever made, and this is the God's honest truth, the most money I ever made was I won £200 in the Great North Run for coming third in the wheelchair race. Now, today, some just get cars sponsored every 8,000 miles. They're on 30, 40,000 pounds a year just to, and some are on more to compete, you know, but never made a penny. But I didn't do it for that.
No. And that money that people get paid now is from sponsorship. So if you're wearing the Adidas clothing.
Yeah.
And what did you do then, John? Did you manage to, you had to work then whilst you were training?
Yeah, I worked full time. At one time I had a newsagent shop, so I was working from 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning through till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then when I had a break, I would go out in the field and train for that, you know. And before we went to Seoul, I had to have my injections. And I can remember being down in my local field training to go to Seoul, because that was the only time I could go, and it was raining. And my arm had swollen right up from my injections. And I was throwing my discus and it was raining. And I get out of my frame and I get into my chair and wheel out and get my discus. And I can remember coming back and I was covered in mud. And this guy came down through the field where I was training. There was a path going down to the local pub, and he had a cream suit on and his umbrella. And he looked at me, he said, John boy, down the pub with me, you should be. And I looked at him and I thought, yeah, but a few weeks later, I'm in Seoul winning bronze and silver medals, and he's still going down the pub. So I think I made the right choice.
Yeah. For now, we're just going to say thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you soon. So thanks, and thanks very much for the interviewees as well, people who participated as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely fantastic. Hey, lovely to see you all, and lovely speaking to you. Ta-da for now.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Thank you. See you soon, John.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.